From one of the most ancient cities in the world, this is CivilNet's Daily News Digest for Monday, October 14th. I'm Paul Chaderjian.
And I'm Maria Titizian. In today's digest, street parties, fireworks, we celebrate Yerevan's 2,795th birthday. Plus,
an exciting soccer match Friday night. Find out who won.
And we hear what a Turkish human rights advocate has to say about commemorating the genocide in Istanbul.
Later, how would sheep vote? We'll show you the award-winning animated short. Fireworks, multiple stages of entertainment throughout the city, a marathon, and a bike ride.
Dancing, music, and a festive weekend for one of the most ancient cities in the world. Erepuni Yerevan celebration started on Friday in our capital city and continued on throughout most of the weekend. The two-day celebration culminated with an open-air concert on Republic Square featuring a who's who of entertainers. Even comedians got into the act with a Gangnam-style routine on stage. There was also a special presentation for some of the members of the legendary Ararat 73 football team who became the championship team in the USSR 40 years ago.
And as expected, Maria, all over social media, citizens and diasporans posted congratulatory notes and words of pride. Haig wrote, multiple outdoor stages all over Yerevan yesterday. The city was partying hard. No matter what, we are a proud people. But there were also vocal critics slamming City Hall for the enormous expense of throwing a lavish street party. On Facebook, Richard writes, more than 1 out of every 3 Armenians is living in poverty, families under pressure from rising prices, civil society under threat of attack and assault. Today's celebration has a disturbing parallel with the practice which was provided, quote, bread and circuses to ease discontent and to distract from poverty.
The other big celebration on the streets of Yerevan Friday night was because of Armenia's national soccer team's win over Bulgaria. It all started Thursday with a hostile welcome from local fans of the visiting Bulgarian team. Local fans said their rude welcome was payback for the ruder reception Armenians received when they played in Bulgaria. When the 10th match was over Friday night, Armenia beat Bulgaria 2-1 in the 2014 FIFA World Cup qualifier match. And right after, hundreds of fans took to the streets to party and celebrate Armenia's victory.
The trials in 2 high-profile cases continued on Friday. Lawyers made their closing arguments in the Dikran Arakelian hooliganism trial. A citizen jailed nearly 2 years ago after a run-in with police learned his fate yesterday. The judge presiding over the hooliganism case against Dikran Arakelian acquitted the activists, who witnessed what they considered the unlawful body search by police of a passerby. When they tried to intervene, they became entangled in an argument with officers. As a result of the scuffle, the men were charged with different offenses. The most serious charge was leveled against Arakelian. He was charged with hooliganism and assaulting a police officer. The 3 other men were released on bail while they awaited trial. Arakelian was denied bail and had been incarcerated for the past 2 years. Last week, he told the court he didn't want to be pardoned through the president's amnesty program. And on Monday, a judge released the ANC activist through the president's amnesty program. He had been behind bars for nearly 2 years after a scuffle with police. We'll have more reaction from Arakelian in tomorrow's digest.
The second is the trial of 5 men accused of the beating death of military physician Vahe Avedian. During the final phase of the trial last week, one of the defendants confessed to being the sole person who beat Avedian. The doctor died from his injuries 12 days after the beating at a banquet hall in Yerevan.
In regional news, EU officials Catherine Ashton and Stephen Füle issued a statement on the turnout for the election in Azerbaijan. The statement says the high turnout in elections illustrates a commitment to the democratic process, but there were significant problems and serious shortcomings with election day, including, quote, the limitations on freedoms of expression, assembly and association that did not guarantee a level playing field for candidates, end of quote. They go on to say that these must be addressed for Azerbaijan to fully meet its international commitments.
The Armenian Weekly reports that the mayor of Diyarbakir Sur municipality paid homage to the victims of the Armenian genocide last week. The weekly reports Abdullah Demirbaş laid flowers at the memorial in Providence, Rhode Island. Demirbaş is quoted saying the Turkish state must apologize and make amends. He said forgiveness is a sign of maturity.
On CivilNet over the weekend, we spoke to human rights advocate and feminist Ayşe Günaitsu. We asked her about the themes she discusses in her columns, including her thoughts on what she should like to see happen in Istanbul on April 24th, 2015.
So it should not be a kind of demonstration like in Armenia, protests, T-shirts and political protests, but a real commemoration, mourning.
Ms. Günaitsu also talked about the Armenian suffering during the genocide and the Kurdish and Turkish shame, and how the two sides in this historic catastrophe should not be viewed as equals or called upon to reconcile. You can watch the entire interview by following our link on YouTube.
On this week's episode of Hidden People, we interviewed political analyst Mikhail Zolyan. He said one of the most critical issues facing Armenia was depopulation, and not only. How should the Armenian nation define itself? What could help us redefine how we perceive ourselves in the world? You can watch to hear Mikhail's insightful answers to these very important questions.
And now a quick look at today's exchange rates.
The Central Bank of Armenia says the dollar is worth 408 dirhams. The Great Britain pound buys you 652. AMD, the euro, is also up at 554 dirhams and 17 luma, and the ruble buys you 12 dirhams and 66 luma.
The forecast for Yerevan looks like this. The high for today is 22 Celsius and 70 Fahrenheit. The temperature in Gyumri is 13 Celsius and 55 Fahrenheit. And in Stepanakert, Gharabagh, the high today will be 14 Celsius and the low will be 8 degrees.
CivilNet's very own video editor Armenian Yaralyan has won Transparency International's short animation competition program titled It's Time to Sober Up.
Here's a clip from the short.
As you can see, Yaralyan's film shows how sheep would vote if they were given the right to take part in elections. Congratulations, Arman. You can watch the entire animated short by going to civilnet.am.
And that is our digest for this Monday.
We want to hear from you. Our email address, once again, is english@civilnet.am.
See you tomorrow.